All right, welcome to curriculum management training for math. Super excited to be here with you guys, whether it's virtual or if we're doing this in person and you're using this as a tool to help you get ready for it. Um, my name is Seth Mays. I'm Director of Sales and Business Development, but I also come and train with you guys, do a little bit of marketing, book some hotel rooms, do a little bit of everything, right? And then our president, Shauna Stefanchik, the creator of all these great tools. So a little bit about Shauna. So if you see on the left, she's done a little bit of everything, right? First and second grade teacher, instructional coach, K-12 district coach, K-5 administrator, K-12 DESE PLC consultant, K-12 DESE ELA trainer, K-12 educational consultant, right? And then some. So she's really been in the education realm for quite some time, and she has done a little bit of everything, right? Currently being a consultant and working with her product, which you will see a little bit of today. But on the right, want to take a few seconds just to tell you about who she is, right? She's a really hard worker. And she always jokes that when it comes to kids, you can see how dedicated she is to going 110% all the time, right? Because if you look, she's got 2 sets of twins and then a 5th right there in her lap. Great kids. I get to fish with them when I go up to Kansas City. Awesome family. So you can see why she stepped out of education, became a consultant. She has a busy lifestyle. So that's a little bit about her. And then who am I? Seth Mays, of course. Graduated from Southeast Missouri State University. So born and raised in Southeast Missouri. Love it there. Would live in Cape if I could. It's one of my favorite cities. 5th grade ELA teacher and reading specialist in Chaffee, Missouri. So that's just south of Cape, right outside of Scott City, or Sykeston, if you're familiar with Lambert's and the Home of Road Rolls. Chaffee's right out there in that area. Then I moved over to Kentucky for a year, spent in 4th grade as the ELA teacher in Ballard. My wife was opening restaurants, so I traveled around the area with her and spent some time in Kentucky. Now I'm in Little Rock, Arkansas, and I work for Step Up Consulting, so I get to travel back and forth to Missouri, helping out schools, and really appreciate that. Obviously a husband, right? There's my wife there on the picture on the left, and then I'm a dog dad as well on the right. Wouldn't sell you the older one, the bigger one, but the younger one is for sale. If you're interested, just give me a call. No, just kidding. She's really sweet, but she can be annoying sometimes. Love to fish as well. And then a little bit about why I do this work. My first year in teaching, I was asked to write curriculum, right? Red flags everywhere. I didn't know how to do it. I didn't have anyone that I felt like I could talk to. Everybody was kind of in the same boat. So years went on. I never really learned how to do that throughout my years of teaching. And finally, I met Shauna with Step Up Consulting, and some light bulbs went off, and I saw how easy, but also how deep you could go into curriculum, right? It doesn't have to be the same old process that we've always been doing. It can be very new and exciting and different, and a lot quicker too. So you'll see a little bit about that today. So things that we'll do during this training, whether you're virtual or whether you're in person, we're going to create pacing guides aligned to the priority standards, right? This is super important because now we know that all of your priority standards are going to be tested. At least 80 to 90% of that end of year test will be over priority standards. Going to give you guys plenty of work time and feedback, and then we're going to talk about next steps. So a few things that if you're doing this as a group virtually that I'd like you to keep in mind, and these are some norms that we try, right? Like all of you to stay engaged. So when it's virtual, that's kind of tough sometimes, right? Pause the video, right? Have conversations. You don't have to watch this all the way through. You can rewind, you can go forward, you can jump around. Whatever you have to do to stay engaged, that's what I'd like to happen. So then we have the Fist of 5 consensus strategy. If you don't know what that is, coming to consensus as a group can be hard. So if you give me a fist like this, that means, hey, I don't agree. I'm never going to do it ever in my life. Don't ask me again, right? 1 means I don't really want to do it, but it's possible. 2 means I'll hear you out. 3 means I'm indifferent, but probably going to do it with the group. 4 means, yeah, I'll do it. Might not exactly be clear, but I will do my best. And 5 means I'm all in. I completely understand, right? One really important thing to think of when doing curriculum work is assuming positive intent. Sometimes we come into curriculum work with those laser eyes, right? Looking to attack things because of the experiences we've had in the past, right? Today's going to be different. And I just want you to assume positive intent when other people at your table are talking. Okay. One speaker at a time. This seems easy, but even for myself, this is hard, right? When someone's speaking, give them that time, open your ears, and just listen. Don't listen to respond, listen to understand. Okay. So one speaker at a time. And then two before me. So if I'm speaking, I'm going to let two people go before I ever say something again. So try to keep those norms top of mind while we work today. Use this time here to do some introductions within your own team. It's possible that you have other buildings in the room, so give some time for everybody to walk around, pause the video, do that now. So first, I'm going to ask you a really cliche question, right? Why did you become a teacher? And I want you guys to discuss this with your group at your tables. But before that, I'll tell you my why, right? I used to think teaching was just about education. And I quickly came to realize that it's more about building a person, right, into a productive member of society, teaching them things that aren't in a book, right? And that's why I was a teacher, to really develop someone as a whole, really, not really just through education, right, but through things they might not be learning at home. And the changes I saw in those little lives really kept me going. So that's my personal one. You guys can pause and share yours now. So why are we doing this work, right? Feel like we've done it a lot, right? So why are we doing it now? Well, Marzano talks about having a guaranteed and viable curriculum. So what does that mean? What is a guaranteed curriculum? You can pause the video and talk amongst yourselves. What it means is that every student is provided the opportunity to learn a core curriculum, which provides them with the probability of success in school. Okay. So in Missouri, that core curriculum is the MLS, right? If we're teaching it over here in this city, and we're teaching it over here in this city with Fidelity, we're going to close those gaps, right? In a perfect world, if you teach everything to every student, then there should be no gap if they end up moving or really trying to minimize that learning loss, right? So we want to give them a guaranteed curriculum. And then what does it mean to be viable? You can pause the video and talk with your groups about this. So viability is saying that schools are going to make sure that the necessary time is available and protected so students will be able to learn the guaranteed curriculum, right? So we know at the most basic, that's 8 to 3, right? But what's the plan, right? How are we going to teach it? That's where your scope and sequence comes into play, your pacing guide. So we'll talk about a little bit about that today. One thing I want to touch on before we get into some of the tools here that we provide is that Missouri in 2021 got a group of teachers together to decide priority standards, right? And it's possible that as you look through our tool, you'll see a priority that is not on the original Missouri Learning Standards Guide, right? There are some things missing, in our opinion, so we may have recommended those to be a priority. For example, I'll give you one in kindergarten. In kindergarten, it is not a priority in the state of Missouri for a student to be able to count by ones and tens to 100, right? Personally, if I was a kindergarten teacher, I would think that's super important, right? So you may see a few things in ours that you do not see in the state's records. There should only be a few, but it is because we recommend them as a building block onto the next steps. And then what all do we need to be ready for curriculum work, right? What all does it entail? So we're talking about DESE priority standards. We're going to dive deep into those. We want you to have a pacing guide of priority standards, the scope and sequence, right? So that viability, that plan. It involves assessments that are aligned to the state and at the rigor of the state, right? This is how we start closing that gap. And then finally, grade cards that align, right? Accurately grading kids based on the assessments that reflect the state assessments, right? This is all kind of the package of curriculum. And then right before we dig in, I just want you guys to know that sometimes curriculum feels like you're this hamster on this wheel, right? You may have done it 3 years ago, and then 5 years ago, and then 10 years ago. We don't want you to feel like we're doing something to you. We want you to feel like we're doing it with you. Okay. This is an opportunity today to really dive into your standards, and we've laid them out very easily for you to see. So as you're looking at those standards, I want you to really think, how are they taught? How are they assessed? How can I get better? How can I scale back maybe on some supporting standards, right? This is not just curriculum work, it's also teacher development, right? We want you guys to learn and understand the standards that you're teaching in your classroom. All right. Now that my throat's clear, so we need to provide some clarity, right? And I ask this to every school that I go to: what is your curriculum? Well, I would say about 90% of the time, hands are raised, or even a book is raised, right? It looks a lot like what's on the left. But I want to clarify, this is not a curriculum, right? That book on the left is not curriculum. Whether it is math or science or social studies or ELA or anything, right? That book on the left is actually a resource. And curriculum is not a resource. Curriculum is the plan to teach the standards, right? And we have curriculum in Missouri. It's the Missouri State Learning Standards. So on the right, this is just a glimpse of what our scope would look like. And you can see some student-friendly language and some priority standards. There are other things in this chart that I want to go over. But basically, your curriculum, whether you have a resource or not, is the Missouri State Learning Standards. If you have them paced or scoped appropriately, you can still teach your students from beginning to end without ever touching that book on the left, right? You can pull your own resources in, right? And some schools do that. So let's look a little bit about how this looks, right? So up top, we have I can statements, right? So that's that student-friendly language, and we have those made for you if it comes with a priority, right? So every priority is going to have an I can statement. And then as you move down, you'll see that there are priority standards, right? Priority standards will be yellow, and we have every single one highlighted for you in the state of Missouri, right? For every grade. And then below that, we have supporting standards. So what is going to be taught in conjunction with my priority, right? We want to list those out as well. I'm not telling you to teach to that 80 or 90% of the test. I'm telling you to teach 100% of the standards, right? But we really want to focus on what our priorities are. So as math teachers, let's take a look at an exemplar that we have for math, right? And I'll kind of go through what you're looking at, and then I'll let you look at it as a whole. So on the far left, you can see this is Unit 1. As you move down, there are 3 white boxes. You can see that it's first quarter. It's going to take 9 weeks, and they're going to provide that proficiency scale, right? That might be something that's going to be hyperlinked in there. And then they're going to link it to their modules. So module 1 is probably numbers to 10, right? Then you can see as you move down, we have the I can statements. There's about 7 or 8 I cans. So that should mean there's about 7 or 8 priority standards, right? As you look across, you can see that they're really well distributed, right? They're really well distributed across. It's heavy in the beginning. It gets a little lighter in the middle. Of course, those may be harder things to master, right? And then in Unit 5, we hit it heavy again, right? Now, Unit 6, if you notice, has no priorities or I cans, but we can't see the supporting section. So there might be some supporting standards in there, but you'll notice up top, it says that that's a review, right? So as a review, they may not be covering or assessing any of those priority standards, right? And then Unit 7 is time and money. Okay, so for kindergarten, those aren't priority standards. So if we could see their supporting standards section, you can see that they're covering time and money. Now, they covered time and money because in first grade, it starts to get covered, right? In second grade, it's covered. But in kindergarten, it's not a priority. So they decided at the end of the year to take time to cover time and money. And you could do that as well. So pause the video here, just have some conversations around what this looks like. If you're a kindergarten teacher, this may be great for you to kind of dig in here and look at the standards that are being taught and see if it looks like what you may be teaching. Now I want you to look at this one. right? Very, very different. And all we can see right here is the I can statements, but you know that I can matches priority. So if there's 5 up top, there's 5 down in the bottom. If there's 1 up top, there's 1 in the bottom, right? And I just want you guys to take some time as a group to notice some key differences between these two examples I've shown you, right? These are both our templates, but they look vastly different, right? So take some time. Now, what I will say is that I noticed that module 4 is extremely heavy, right? And maybe those all do need to be taught together. I'm not for sure because I'm not that teacher, but I would be asking a question, do I have to teach them all together or can I spread them out? Unit 5 looks extremely light. Unit 2 looks extremely light. Is there any way to break that up for the students so that we're not testing 10, 11, 12 priority standards at the end of that at the unit, right? So that's the main question I have is how could we spread unit 4 out, right? If you came to that conclusion, great. If you had other things that you noticed, share it with your group. So we're going to take some time here to just reflect on the priority standards in the state of Missouri, okay? While we're reflecting on that, I really want you to take 5 minutes individually and put a star by things that you have not assessed or taught heavily, right? So if you see a priority that you don't hit as hard as you could or should, or just didn't even know it was a priority, go ahead and put a star by that. And then if you have priority standards that you teach often, I want you to circle them, okay? So I'm gonna give you guys 5 minutes to do that right now. Okay. As a group, I want you guys to determine the major concepts taught in your grade level and write them on some chart paper. So I would like you to be sitting with your grade level teams, right? Whether that's different buildings, that's okay. But I want you to, on a piece of chart paper, write out the major concepts taught in your grade, right? So whether it's number sense or geometry or base 10, right? I want you to write the major concepts taught in your grade level and put them on that chart paper. Now, everybody's going to stand up and we're going to take a few minutes with your grade level teams walking around and looking at everyone's chart paper. Okay. What I want you to think about while we're doing this is, do you notice any gaps grade level to grade level, right? Is kindergarten focused on something that first grade isn't necessarily as heavy on, right? And how could we close that gap, right? Have those conversations with your team. How as second grade teachers could we help out third grade teachers and close some of the gaps we see between what we see as important and what they see as important, right? So take some time as a team and walk around. Now, what I'd like you to do is figure out the progressions, right? And you can do this by standard or you can do it by topic, right? What I would do is I would determine by topic first and then write your standards to be more detailed. But what you're going to do is you're going to take all those major things that you teach throughout the year and you're going to put them in sequential order. What comes first, what comes last, right? If you'd like to get more detailed and put the standards underneath and how they're taught, you can do that as well. That'll help you out later. We're going to take some time to do that now. After that's finished, you can now walk around again and see how they have put them in sequential order. So what we've done is essentially made a scope and sequence in a very simple sense for the year, right? So how does this translate to the tool? Well, I want you to take a few minutes to look at this slide here. When you get into our tool, you'll notice that there is a DESI tab and a scope and sequence tab, okay? On the DESI tab, you would find your priority standard that's highlighted yellow and you would copy that. You would then go over and paste that into your template. At the same time, you would go over to the I can statement for that priority and paste that into your template as well. Right? So now we've got our first standard, our first I can statement. Right? Now remember, when you place something in a priority section, you are saying that it can be mastered at that time. Right? So if I place a standard in the first unit, I'm expecting it to be able to be mastered in the first unit. Right? You can go through and look at that chart paper that you made and decide where these units should be, where the standards within those units should go, and complete your units from beginning to end. After you've got your priorities pasted in, you can then go through and paste in your supporting standards as well. So what's next? Pacing priority standards. Where do we expect students to be proficient, right? Well, once we've got that decided and you've got beginning to end finish, we need to develop assessments around those priority standards, right? So you would be looking at the priority standards that you have in that section and creating those level 3 assessment questions for the unit assessment, right? So that would be the next step after we get finished pacing out our year. So as you work on this, there is a video link to shortcuts. I just want you to know, if you're virtual, that sometimes the template can get a little messy looking, and that's okay. If you watch the link here, it will actually show you how you can click the top left corner and change all your settings all at once. That way you're not stuck in that one box fixing everything box per box, right? So I'd encourage you to watch the video. It's quick and it shows you some simple fixes for some of those mistakes. So if you're virtual, you can actually pause and work through this. I'm going to give you plenty of work time. If we're doing it in person, then we're probably already done, right? Great job, guys. I would love to have feedback. There is probably going to be a survey coming to you guys through email. Please take that. Let us know what you loved. Let us know what you hated, right? Let us know what we could do better on in the future. That would be great for us. And I really appreciate all you guys' hard work today. I know curriculum work can be hard sometimes, but you guys all did really well and assumed positive intent the whole time. I do want to keep this up on the screen for you. This QR code takes you to the Missouri Instructional Leaders Network. If you are an admin in this process, if you are a principal, a process coordinator, a superintendent, a curriculum leader, right? Go ahead and scan this and join our network. It's full of free information from people all over the state. Shauna herself gets on there and does updates for DESE. And we bring great people on, and one day it could be you getting on there and talking about great things in your building as well. So join that. We'd love to see it. Yeah, thank you guys so much.